Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be talking about the results from BCS Anaheim that happened over the weekend, as well as a season summary across all the formats around the world. And essentially we're going to look at the decks that we're going to be expecting to see at Worlds, which is held in January. Fuzzy just released a website that displays all the information from recent tournaments both on the global scene and the Japanese scene, ranging from BCS events to the Vanguard Deluxe. Go visit vg-paradox.com and check it out. It has information on topping decks, tournaments being ran around the world, and even better, it has player rankings as well. Definitely go and have a look. Feel free to support him and the amazing work that he does. So starting off, we have BCS Anaheim top 8, 3 Eva, 2 Zorga, 1 Gravidia, 1 Prison, 1 Kari. So I think Eva now is probably one of the best, or if not the best, brand gate deck. And with the release of the PR, it just shows results everywhere. So not only in Anaheim, it also showed in Perth, it also showed in Melbourne. I think Eva was shown in Singapore as well. So we could definitely see a huge impact of what that promo does to make Eva one of the best decks in the format. So jumping to top 4. First place was an Eva, Jordan piloting Eva to first place, congrats. Second was Jalen with Kari, third with Prison, piloted by Rutillo, and then fourth was Kenneth with Red Zorga. So we can see that Eva with the new PR is very, very impactful, and I think Eva took a couple of top slots as well. Quite surprising not to see something like Lutetia in the top 8, but I guess, you know, Lyrical 3 isn't too sought after. We just know that Eva is just such a strong deck. It literally has everything, but it's not overpowered in any of its departments. So as we can see, Eva performing super well and probably one of the decks to look out for at Worlds. Jumping to V. So yeah, we don't really need to talk about this format anymore. It's a Steam Maiden format, 5 Gear Chronicle, 1 7 Seas, Luard, and Regalia. And then the top 4, wow, so surprising. So congrats Brian, Brad, Nicholas, and Juning, all playing Steam Maiden. Alright, so that was a quick one for V. And then looking at Premium. So Steam Maiden also, you know, doing some work in Premium. So 3 Gear Chronicle, 2 Narukami, one of them being Vanquisher, the other one being Sweep Command, 1 Highlander, 1 DP, and 1 Spike Brothers. So looking at the top 4 results though, the Spike Brothers taking it all, coming first place, congratulations Joshua. Second was Bryant with Highlander, third was Matthew Bake with Steam Maiden, and fourth was Dio with DP. So it just looks like, you know, Spike Brothers is one of these sleeper decks. This deck won, I think, one of the regionals in the US recently, and it's been top 8 in Singapore. It's just like one of these decks that pops up, and some decks just can't cope with its early aggro, and yeah, it just steals games. Like the deck has a really good grade 2 game. Yeah, and if you give him first stride into the Galley Gabalus, like it just destroys you. So yeah, very cool to see Spike Brothers achieving results. I think all the Spike Brother fans around the world really appreciate this. So congratulations to all the 4 players there. So looking at the season summary, I think this is probably the more interesting part of this video. So obviously the meta has shifted for all formats throughout the whole BCS season. So we had, you know, the introduction of the new PRs. I don't think we had a ban list this season. And if we did, I think it was Start of Indonesia, if I'm not mistaken. So Start of Indonesia was the ban list. And then essentially the format kind of evolved as things released. So as we can see, a huge dominance of Gravidia, Flagberg, and Prison, and Mahar across all the regions. But it's very surprising to me, actually quite alerting, that 15 Eva ended up making a pretty big portion of what is, you know, divided into heck knows how many decks, top 8'd across all of Standard. So it's pretty surprising that, you know, the PR introduction is that much of an impact, that 15 Eva across, it would have started from like Perth So Perth would have been the first, and then maybe like a couple 5 or 6 BCSs from Perth showing results. So it just shows that Eva is a very impactful deck in standard at the moment, especially with the PR. And Lutetia as well. Lutetia, with the introduction of Lyrical 3, I think it's a really strong deck. A very good contender for Worlds as well. The one deck we don't see here, and that's because we didn't really get the promo until recently, is Overlord. So maybe Worlds will just shake it up a bit with Overlord. But as we expect, this is pretty much, you know, if you're going into BCS like now, you definitely see these decks around. And then the top 4 conversion though. So the top 4 conversion for standard shows just a similar dominance by Gravidia and Prison and Flagberg. 8 Kari out of the 15 converted and 11 Kari. So a lot of the top decks, the top represented decks converted well. Whether or not that is by, you know, participation rate, but I think overall, I think those decks are super strong. So ranking them at the very top end of a tier list, that is what you expect for these decks. And then looking at what took it all, first place was actually Eva. So Eva 4 out of the 15, and I think if I'm not mistaken, that was 4 out of the 8 Eva. So half of the ones that made it from top 4 converted and came first. So very cool to see that the meta shifts, right? Because previously, if we took out the Eva, then we'd see Prison, Kari, and Gravidia being the top slots. Greedon, Lutetia are there as well, and then a bunch of one-offs in other departments as well. So we can definitely see and expect Eva at Worlds. We will see people play Prison. We will see people play other forms of lyrical decks, and we may see, you know, a huge change, because obviously the introduction of DBTO7 and then Youthberg will see a huge introduction into the meta, as well as, you know, Overlord getting its promo as well. So yeah, that's pretty much standard. So we definitely expect to see Eva, lyrical decks, and then this will change with Youthberg and Overlord as well. Jumping to V's not surprising at all. Let's be real. You know, if you followed these videos, if you followed what's going on around in the world, you know, it's a Steam Maiden format. It's a tier 0 format. It's probably one of the worst formats we've probably been in. Like, I actually enjoyed Prism meta than Steam Maiden meta, and that says a lot. 80 Gear Chronicles making its top 8, and then the second one being 17, which is Genesis. That is insane. Like 63 decks, well, 63 difference between the first and second most represented decks. That's just insane. I'm not too sure why Bushra hasn't attended to this problem. Like, being a tier 0 deck, this is equivalent to when Bendy was released with Luard, and they emergency hit Luard and Bendy because of the representation was too insane, and the results showed. So that's really surprising to me. And then if we look further, top 4 actually has more of a 50% representation of Gear Chronicle, and then the second one being Genesis at 7, which is a singular number. So 40 Gear Chronicles more represented in the top 4, converting from top 8. That is ridiculous. And then, you know, obviously we have the other decks. But looking at the first place, 16 Gear Chronicles out of what? 18, 20, 23. 16 out of 23 decks were Gear Chronicle. That is ridiculous. Like, does this not speak a tier 0 format? Like, V is that format that always gets trapped and goes into a rabbit hole for like a tier 0 format. Like, I think we had Prism, and then we had Gurgit at one stage, and now we have Steam Maiden. Like, why does this always happen? Right? So if Worlds is ever gonna be entertaining for V Premium, Steam Maiden needs to go. And probably in multiple ways to hit the deck. Like, sure, you can hit Colossus, but I don't think it will make that much of an impact to the deck anyways. I think the Enterana cat combo is ridiculous, +3 each time you use it. Obviously you can miss the cat, but it's just an insane engine. Has multi-attack, like, wow. Yeah, the deck's insane. So yeah, this is gonna be V for Worlds, which is really unfortunate. We probably will see more of something like this for Worlds, where we'll see, you know, some players don't actually bring the best deck unless they're actually looking to win Worlds, which is probably half or 75% of the room, where 25% of the room will bring either counters to Maiden or their personal picks. So personal picks, let's just look at the interesting part, right? So anything that isn't Steam Maiden, so like Genesis, Night Rose, Jewel Knight, Luard, Vanquisher, Ange, Leopold, like those are the decks that you expect. Like if let's just say Steam Maiden was taken out of the picture, those are the decks that you expect to see in the meta. So you will see those decks come up at Worlds in probably maybe round 1, round 2, if you're lucky, maybe in the later rounds, if the Leopolds do well, if the Jewel Knights do well, if the Genesis do well, you know, sometimes it happens, you know? But the likelihood of you seeing Steam Maiden at Worlds is very, very high. So yeah, until they do something about this, I'm sorry. That's just what you'll see at Worlds, which is quite unfortunate. Anyways, looking at the top 8 for Premium. Premium, as much as I thought would be a huge chunk of Narukami, it ended up not being so. So obviously the meta shift of, you know, Ripple, MFD, and Naru, and then the ban list hit, and then the meta kind of changed again. So majority of that, actually the whole season was dominated by Narukami, and then the second one being Gear Chronicles. So the first maybe 25% of the tournament was, you know, MFD meta. So it soon evolved into Steam Maiden. And then that kind of goes the same with Aquaforce as well. So it was Ripples, and then it transitioned into Thava. So we definitely see like a pretty good representation of those 3 clans. And then there's still, you know, Highlander, Link Joker, which is pretty surprising. Seeing a lot of Link Joker there. Night Metal still doing well, and then, you know, a bunch of other decks as well. And then the decks that converted to top 4, majority of them were Narukami. So, you know, walking into Worlds, this is what you expect, right? 15 Gear Chronicle, and the fact that it continued on from MFB meta. So to see Steam Maiden as well, Narukami and Steam Maiden are the 2 decks that you'll see at Worlds. There are people who pilot Aquaforce as well. So you definitely see Aquaforce at Worlds. Bermuda at Worlds, definitely. So those are the 4 decks to look out for. And then, you know, you still have your Spike Brothers, you still have your Night Meadow, you still have your DPs, you still have people who play Grand Blue. Those are really strong contenders as well. So a lot of these decks, as much as, you know, Narukami is dominant, you got to remember that Narukami is not just Eradicators. It's Vanquisher as well. So, you know, obviously we split that into maybe 75-25, 75 being Eradicators, different builds of Eradicators as well. But the game plan is essentially the same, you know, Stunverse or Exterminate, etc, etc, and it just kind of goes on like that. Whereas, you know, other decks may have different game plans or whatever, but all in all, pretty much the same. And then the ones that won, so 5 Narukami and 4 Gears, actually pretty close, you know. So the partitions in this pie chart are actually quite even. So you can see, you know, a considerable amount won by Narukami, Gear Chronicle, and Aquaforce as well. 2 Grand Blues, 2 Dimension Police, 2 Spike Brothers, and that was recent as well. 2 Bermuda, yes, I was one of the Bermudas, very cool. And then Nightmare Doll and then Genesis as well. So we can see that these decks have a lot of impact, right? And it's not just super one-sided to, you know, fully Narukami. A lot of people say that, you know, Narukami is, you know, a threat or the boogeyman of the format, the deck that you need to beat. It's true. You know, the access to Stunverse and Exterminate, both in the same deck, is very strong. But it's not an unbeatable deck, you know, it's not a Steam Maiden of V. So there are ways to play around it, but it's a little bit harder for some decks, right? And sometimes you just kind of have to build your deck around that, and which is quite frustrating, but you know, it is what it is, right? So yeah, that's pretty much the breakdown of the season. And to be honest, at the start of the season, I thought Premium was going to be, you know, very unbalanced, because obviously, you know, MFD and Ripple were part of the meta, but then it completely got shafted. And then I thought Narukami would go on a rampage. It kind of did, going to top 8, but the conversion to top 4 and first place were actually quite even amongst all the clans. So very, very cool to see that as well. So big shout out to Fuzzy again. He's been doing these charts all season long, and you know, we're able to cover this because of him. So make sure you go follow him. His link is in the description below. If you guys like this video, hit a like, comment down below what you guys think of Anaheim and the whole season as well. What you guys expect to see at Worlds. It's going to be an amazing time in January. And yeah, if you haven't subscribed, hit that subscribe button, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.